everybody. It's a touch after 7 o'clock, so let's start the meeting. Welcome to everybody. We'll just start with the beginnings of the agenda before we go into the public session. So apologies and reasons for absence.
Borough Councillor Johnny Shelton has an ONS meeting.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. With his leader, or the leader, not his leader. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make?
No.
Good. So I don't have any applications to consider. Reminder to everyone, we record the meeting with the big silver microphone, and then all being well it goes on our YouTube channel afterwards, so that anyone who's not here can hear our wisdom being displayed. So please be aware of what you say. We now, since as councillors are aware, Councillor Leslie Brown resigned since the last meeting, and therefore we should elect a new vice chairman. Have we got any nominations for vice chairman? Well, I shall nominate Alan then, if Alan is willing to stand as vice chairman. He's sausage rolled at the minute.
Do we have a vote now?
No.
I heard no objections.
No. Not yet spoken yet.
Is it admissible to qualify the nomination in some way with a? Am I allowed to say anything?
Oh, you can say anything you like. Well, up to a point.
Remembering you're being recorded.
Of course.
And we want to finish by 9.
Of course.
But then I have sent an email round to the parish council members who they will have all read that about this concept. I did send something round which you will have read about it, bearing in mind that I wasn't looking really for more major village responsibilities because I have rather a lot. If you see what I mean. Having said that, I'm very happy to chair, if it seems appropriate, meetings if, for instance, the chair, whoever that may be, was unavoidably detained or on holiday or doing something else. I wouldn't be anticipating doing it more than possibly once or twice a year.
Well, the key to that, Alan, is that the councillors need to think about who to elect as vice chairman. The vice chairman obviously has to be willing to be vice chairman. The election lasts for a year normally, but since we're mid-session, as it were, between May and May, then it would last until May, when the election by law takes place again, same as it does for the chairman every year. As vice chairman, were you to be elected, you're always able to resign. It just leaves councillors to think about another one.
I do have something else to say as well.
Go on, please.
I think we've, how to put this, it's quite a delicate thing to say. I think we've been fortunate in this process because we know Jeremy's situation and he's been very loyal and noble and done a huge amount for the parish council and he wants to stand aside. And I think we've been fortunate that there is somebody in the community who is prepared to join us. And then collectively we got together and decided that was there an opportunity to create the vacancy to allow this to happen because of the limited numbers that we're allowed to have on the parish council. And we sort of agonised it over a bit and we went away and we agonised it over a bit more. And we had private discussions here, there and everywhere. And we sort of collectively made a decision. I actually think we made the wrong one there. I think we made the wrong decision. And I think that our vice chair, current vice chair, or longer vice chair, nobly stood aside to allow this to happen. Just privately, I'm not saying that anybody else. I think of all of us, perhaps he was the one person who shouldn't have been allowed to go. That's what that's roughly what I'm saying. I think of all of us, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, she is actually the person who should not have been allowed to do what she has nobly done.
Well, thank you, Alan. But we are where we are. Things can change. Councils and councillors can ebb and flow. There are no rules about people only doing one term or anything like that. I've done 3 and a bit terms. The key really is if you're willing to stand as vice chairman, given that so far, unless other people do make any other proposals, there is no one else being proposed, and if you're willing to stand, then we still need a seconder. Sally will second, so can I have a vote for those in favour of Alan becoming vice chairman? So it's unanimous, Alan, that you have got the gig. Well done.
Well done, Alan.
Right.
Can I just say that, Alan, the person that usually that was always sat there ends up as vice chairman, so it was
Good.
inevitable.
It's at your left hand.
Hello, Nicholas. Welcome.
Thank you.
Right.
It's just Mr. Crucial moment.
Indeed. Never mind. So, having done that little piece of business that became a little bit more complicated, we now have the public session. So I will open that, and as we always do, we always allow the police officers, if they're in attendance, to go first, because that enables them, if they wish, to depart on their constabulary duties afterwards. But you're equally welcome to stay, by the way. But we don't leave you waiting till the end when you've got other things to do. So let me introduce PC Darren Laker on the left, who is our beat constable. I think that's the correct term now, but beat means about 10 or a dozen parishes. It doesn't mean like when I was young. And sitting next to him, Special Constable Colin something.
Groom.
Colin Groom,
Yeah.
thank you. Who's come along because, as a special, he is particularly aligned towards and interested in community policing. I think that would be true, yeah. And doesn't live too far away in Tenterden. Right, what would you like to tell us?
Just probably want to say hello. Obviously, it's been put out there by Peter New, you're the neighbourhood watch. Later, you've got an officer. Obviously, I do cover down to Shaddockshurst, Biddington, Highholden, Wittersham, Stone. So it's quite a big area. I do Ham Street. It just reads escape, so you've got a name to the face. If you have any sort of concerns, please, you've got my mobile number, my email. Obviously, I work days and nights, so if I need to I'm flexible as well. I need to change my shifts. Pretty much out here, there's not a lot that's been reported. Not saying it's not happening. It's just getting that little message out saying you need to report it. Even online, call me, because I know what a lot of places are like. People use Facebook to say, oh, you've seen this, done that, but it never gets reported to us, so then we sort of say, you've had no reports, but no things are happening, but not reported. It's usually just a case of sort of come and say what your concerns are around here at the moment. I've only been doing it since sort of mid-October, so I'm still sort of finding my feet. But obviously any concerns that you have that myself or like my colleague, specialist colleagues when they're out and about down this way can sort of look out, because obviously we go to areas where we're told things and we might miss something. If we know something's gone out here, we can focus a bit more time out here.
Good, okay, thank you. Does anyone want to raise any points with our two members?
We're pleased to see you.
Jeremy, I have reported the fact that the property that we have bought in the village here, it's a bungalow due to be demolished. Very good news, this afternoon we got our planning consent, so it's called Court B down the street. We've had 3 vandalisations, if you like. They have been reported, we believe we know the responsible party, and my wife has encountered him, and I think he's been persuaded that he shouldn't do anything further. But no, the place was broken into twice, and on the last occasion they chose to break all the internal glass doors. So all I would say is that it has been reported. The possible culprit knows we're aware, and my wife has written some very strong notes that are on the building. And since then there's been no further vandalism, but it just raises the point that during the school holidays there's a risk, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're aware of it in every village that you deal with.
Yeah, it's villages, it's like Ashford Town Centre, it's there where you get little kids hanging around.
Sure.
It's there's been a couple of reports of sort of derelict buildings or kids hanging around, not necessarily here in other villages, just land where it's out of the way. Sometimes it starts off as just somewhere to keep out the rain or something, then it's start temptation of smashing things up because they're bored. But obviously
Do you think you'll be able to spend enough time in your villages to begin to know who the likely culprits are, and perhaps
I like to think
make them aware that you're aware, and
Yeah.
then I think
it's like everything. If certain villages, like a couple of villages, have raised their head a little bit, so of course you spend a bit more time there, but then of course others get forgotten about. So the more I know about stuff, the more I can sort of come out. But I think this time of year it does fluctuate. When you get the guys sort of like lighter evenings, you probably get to know a lot more people because you'll see a lot more people out walking, kids going about places, and then you sort of get to know these good places. But yeah, get out when I sort of can, and so especially during the school holidays is the ideal time to sort of get them.
Okay. Yeah, Paul.
Darren, hi. Over the years, we've been party to the Police Parish Forum, which has not happened for a while, but it's been incredibly useful, and we typically sent 2 or 3 parish councillors along to that. And the advantage there was when you had a PC with quite a large patch, as you have, there was an opportunity to share information, and also very often to be a senior officer come along, and that was a good way of actually him or her understanding what was going on. The other benefit was we live in a rural community, and there were usually a couple of members of the Kent Rural Community Rural Task Force who have gone from strength to strength, literally in terms of numbers and also successes. Do you have any understanding, or are you aware of any plans going forward to reinvigorate the Police Parish Forum?
Not at the moment. I think, as you say, is settling down. It's been up in the air like the last few months due to where obviously certain roles were sort of changed. Officers have been filling in as beat officers, and now we've got a few more. Hopefully, we've got a few more officers coming, but it's a bit of an uplift, so it's kind of staggered. I think there's a couple more people coming January, but it's because of what they're doing now. It just needs time to get them out of there to then fill the new one. Parish Forums, I remember them because obviously I remember the days when you had like Andrew Judd, Florence and that, and I was there. So it's something that wouldn't surprise me that could probably be raised again. It just obviously needs the time to do it where it can be sort of done best place. But I think like everything in sort of King Police, it kind of, or in police in general, gets reinvented.
Well, maybe you can feed that. I think it was inspector-led, the last couple of them, and Tenterden Town Hall was a good venue. It was right in the middle. It was a plenty big enough room, and then there was a pretty good attendance. You were there, Jeremy, weren't you? And I think a couple of
we used to go to Ashford Police. We used to do an Ashford Police station every three months.
Yeah.
About one time.
Okay.
You have been doing your engagement sessions here and there as well, haven't you? And one was done here, but I didn't attend it myself. I can't remember why, and I don't know how many people turned up. Because I think there's a bit of a problem when you do try and run an engagement session, how you get that message out that you're going to do it.
Yes, yeah, I did it a couple of times. I've done it through emails to the venue and put it out in my community voice. But it's just trying to get those contacts to put it out to the right people, saying I'm going to be here because it's like I don't want to gate crash a particular sort of event somewhere. Because it's there for them. But if like a cafe or something, it's quite a good place to sort of do it if it's not available, because then come and have a cup of tea and have a chat. I'm just trying to find relevant areas to do something for individually.
2 things that are worth you bearing in mind. One is that if you notify us that you're going to do one in Wittersham, then, as I said earlier, the Wittersham neighbourhood, what do we call it? Neighbourhood?
Next door.
Next
Next
door.
door.
Senior moment. The Wittersham next door has got a lot of members. I think we've got 500 and odd houses. I think we cover something like 2/3 of the houses and half the adults. You know, they're not necessarily reading it all the time, but it's getting out there, and it is a social media system. So we would be able to put a message out much wider than you can with your My Community Voice, because there's just not that many people on there. The second thing is, if you wanted, then there is a session in this room every Thursday morning with coffee and biscuits, and I think yours is probably the best attended, isn't it? Which is the second one.
Yeah.
So second Thursday of the month is the one that most people come to. First and third is mostly directed towards the older people. I mean, we're all old here, but mostly the older people on first and third. Second is kind of a little bit wider and more people come.
Yeah.
Fourth may be similar, but not quite as many, I'm not sure. And then there's not usually a fifth one.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out things like that, because Apple does stuff like saying, like, you've got your bit of wood sheds, you've got your village halls, what's on there might be suitable for me to sort of...
I'll email so that you've got the details and the times.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere like out here, because it's not small in other areas, that's the ideal sort of place to go, where, like, I've got to do Tenterden,
Sure.
quite busy, so you can just pop somewhere.
That's right.
But yeah,
You can get up to about 20 there.
Yes, yeah.
I
So
do
you know,
find
that's
that
quite useful.
they're better, because a couple I've done, I think they had one at Ham Street, one at Tenterden, so, because they knew that was it. Which is fine, it's somebody, but sometimes it's probably better to come somewhere where people actually come in, like a coffee room, and sort of want to talk to me, you do, if you don't.
I think that's
in a
right.
big way.
And I think we just need to keep plugging away at My Community Voice, because there is a lot of useful stuff on there, particularly on frauds,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and like Halloween, we put it out, all those
Yeah.
links for...
No, absolutely
trick or
right,
treat,
and how
trick or
people should
treaters.
behave and all that stuff. I think it's a good site, but it's just not getting through.
Yeah.
It hasn't got the cut through yet.
It's taking
No,
its time, because
Instead of your 3,000, 30,000 is a start, and you really want 100,000 or 200,000. A lot of people in Kent. Okay, other people wanting to
No, not bad.
raise points? Okay, thank you. Well, as I said, you're very welcome to stay as long as you want, including to the end. You know, it's a public meeting, but thank you for that. Now, does anyone else want to raise something in the public session? Yes, you do. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to speak as the chairman of the Friends of Wittersham Windmill, Stocks Mill, Wittersham, which I'm sure you're all aware of, even if you haven't been there. It's up by the stocks. Can't see it too well from the road at the moment. Oh, you might be able to. The leaves are off the trees, aren't they? Now this windmill, I know you're going to talk about it under section 12, correspondence number 4. According to your agenda anyway. Item 12, number 4, yeah? Right. But I thought I'd just give you a little bit of my views and a summary of what's on. You may not all realise that it's actually owned by the KCC. They own the mill and the footprint it stands on, as I understand, and that's it. Nothing else up there. So it is basically in the middle of Stocks House Garden. Right? Let's put it one way. KCC currently are in charge of the maintenance of the structure, and they pay for the services, that is electricity, because it's the only service it's got, and then the repairs. From the odd one to complete repaint that they did earlier this year, but not the sweeps. The volunteers are the people who furnish the mill, keep the mill clean, prepare and present it to visitors, and lock it up and keep it safe, dust it and hoover it. Try hoovering a windmill. So that gives you an idea of how things are at the moment. Now what is happening is that KCC want to sell that windmill along with 7 others that they own in Kent, right, scattered around Kent. This is obviously causing a lot of consternation, and the mill managers have got themselves together and got themselves into a group, plus some mills from outside of that group of KCC mills, who are all owned by other organisations and some of them privately owned, because they realise that the management of mills is coming under close scrutiny, and they are hopeful of being able to control it a little bit. KCC, which is what is actually on your agenda tonight, have put out a consultation to the public of Kent. There's a consultation document and then there's a questionnaire. I've got a copy of the questionnaire here. This is the printed copy which you can pick up off I'm assuming that everybody will be able to get online to the KCC website and you'll be able to pick up all this information, but including the first page of the consultation questionnaire. The second paragraph says you can answer all or as many questions as you would like to. If you would rather not provide feedback on a section or question, just move on to the next one. Now it is a long questionnaire. There's about two questions per page. There's about 20 pages here. So I would never expect anyone to fill them all in. But I would really appreciate if you could fix it, because the last thing we want, as every one of the 8 mills owned by KCC, they do not want KCC to sell them. Nobody's offering to buy them even, mind you. But I mean, that is another point. When this consultation, which ends on the 29th of January, is sorted out, and it'll probably be March then. By the time they sort that out, they'll have another committee meeting, probably in May sometime next year. We might know what their final decisions are. What their decision is and how practical it is to do it is up to KCC. I mean, what we would all like to have is the status quo. Right? And it's done a bit of good, if nothing else, in coordinating all the mill managers in Kent together as a group. We've had 1 or 2 really good meetings. When I say mill managers, chairmen of the friends of this, that and the other, and all the rest of it, like, anyone who's really keen. And there are some amazingly keen people out there. Don't take me as an example, please. So I thought I'd just put that out now, if you don't mind. What I would appreciate is if anyone's in agreement with what I've just said, if someone who's a little bit more up to social media than I am could put it out on what you've just described there, Jeremy, the neighbour of what's known.
Next door.
Next door, sorry. And maybe Facebook or something. I mean, there's a lot of these, and over the course of the last previous years, as you well know, I've kept well down a low profile on all that, because it's not a good idea, in my opinion, for a borough councillor to do that sort of thing. I'm no longer the borough councillor. Quick. I'll take any questions now, so you don't have to ask me later, if you wish, Chairman.
Have you put that out already?
No.
No. It's something you could do on.
Well, I was waiting until we
Indeed.
councillors
I
decided
think
what
if
they liked.
once we get to it on the agenda, that's something that maybe Yvonne can echo for
Thank
you
you very much.
quite reasonably, because she's got a next door account and a Facebook page. Anyone
Mick,
want to comment on
any
that?
views from the owners of the land on which the windmill sits? In the one at the start?
Yes, but I mean, I'm only speaking off the cuff on that, because
Yeah.
he is in favour of the status quo.
Okay. And this might be a who knows, but one of the questions is, if the plan, I mean, this is driven, as I understand it, completely by cost saving.
Of course.
There's no strategic element to it.
No.
Is there any hint yet, and probably the answer is no, but is there any hint yet as to what conditions might be applied to a sale? And the reason I ask that is that, if you start applying all sorts of conditions, it narrows the potential purchaser.
No, none at all. They haven't even decided that they can sell it. They've got to get it through 2 private committees, then to the cabinet, then to the full council.
Right.
Before they can say finally, okay, we're up for grabs.
Right. So in theory, the parish council could put in a bit of a quid.
Yes, they could put it in an ACV, they do what they like, as others are thinking
Have
of
some
doing.
done ACVs? Some put ACVs?
Some have, yes, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't put a bid in, at least an ACV tells the public that you're interested in the mill.
Yep.
Bear in mind, of course, it starts off as listed anyway.
None at all. Negative probably.
I didn't
Well, you see,
get-
there's such a range of these mills. There's two of them that are more than completely working, and one of them,
Yes.
much like Willsborough windmill, which perhaps some of you know, is completely self-sufficient. The one at Margate's pretty good, and the one at Cranbrook, out here at Cranbrook. Now that is excellent. They're very good, and they, if they were sold off, there might be a buyer for those. But there will be so many streams, and some of them are on 90-year leases, and heaven knows what, everyone is different. And I've heard referral to the other one in the 8 that is similar construction to the Stocks mill, except it hasn't got the bricks around at the bottom. It's Chillenden mill, and he referred to it as one week, this is the bloke, as a hut on a stick. And when you really think about it, that type of mill, the post mill,
Yes.
is just that. It's all balancing on top of a stick, a bloody great beam like.
Who's the KCC cabinet member that's responsible?
She just quit.
Okay.
Just squish, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And the vice deputy, I know, but if it was to do with fish and sea walls, he'd be a lot happier. Than
Sea walls.
Sea walls, yes. Sea
Okay.
walls. He's a member for Warren Marsh.
Okay.
Going back a year or 5, and you'll remember this, and possibly Sally will remember, because the family who lived at Stocks Mill were called Langton, and they gave the mill away to KCC, who, like lambs,
They paid for it,
did they?
£10.
Yes. Well, they were lambs to the slaughter, and I mean, they were asked, did they want it, and they said, yes, please.
Yeah, quite, yeah.
Now, okay, obviously the mood in society has changed regarding windmills, and it's probably based on finance, but then there wasn't any money then either.
No.
So why has the mood changed?
I don't know. People like to see things working, and I think the 2 or 3 that do grind corn still have got a big advantage. You see, you can't do anything with Stocks mill. You can't even turn it around. You can turn the switch by hand, and that's bloody hard work. I might add, the Stocks mill is a Grade 2 style listed building as well. So that might make it difficult to say. They're all Grade 2 listed, but Wittersham and 2 others have got Grade 2 stuff. I
Couple
don't
of
know
them
how.
ones, I think, or one of them is a 1, isn't it?
Sorry?
Well, I think one of them is a 1, isn't it?
Possible.
And I think one of them isn't listed, but I mean most of them are
Yeah,
2s. My feeling when seeing it, just with speculation with no evidence, is that this is part of a KCC doing a big trawl through everything they can find in their asset list, saying, what should we do, what should we do, what should we do? And they've gone out necessarily to consultation, and what we don't really know is whether they themselves have any optimism over this.
Oh.
Obviously they're going through the motion.
It was a close vote by 1, even for the consultation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's throwing good money after bad, of course, if they don't manage to do anything.
Well, there you go. I mean, everybody's done those sort of finances and said, you're chucking more money out trying to do this than you'll ever get for them, like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing they're steering clear of is 114, which you may know what it is.
Indeed. Well, other people.
Bankruptcy.
Other people
The
have to go
other
at them.
terms.
Indeed. Yes, Alan, did you want to say something?
No, I was saying we ought to get on.
Get on, yeah. I'm being wound up.
Yeah, where's your vice chairman?
Is there, by the new vice chairman, yes. Is there anything else that people want to raise on windmills? Okay, bye guys. Thank you very much for coming. Alf, do you want to raise something?
I don't know, do I? The van?
I was told you did.
Oh, yes, yeah. The van's in for repair.
Indeed. On what this time?
Campbell.
It's still there on that, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's on Campbell. They I booked it in for an MOT, mentioned about checking the Campbell. 20 minutes later the cam belt went. So,
Did you take the lottery up that week?
I didn't do, no.
Okay.
Anyway, he said it should be done in the New Year, just after Christmas. Luckily, it's not a new engine. It can be repaired.
Okay.
750 quid, certainly no more than 1,000.
What did it
but
damage?
considering we had the clutch done last year, new turbo this year, new battery. Other than that,
No.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's,
Not the month.
Just don't go.
it's well, at the moment, yeah.
Well, tyres, brakes,
Indicators
suspension,
work,
all
I mean,
that.
that's pretty
On the
good.
horse.
How many revs did you get for a belt then?
It was a bit of a pop.
All right, okay, so you think it can carry on for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Fair enough. Right, anything
Can I-
else, John?
Could you just explain about the goalposts? What you
Oh,
would
yes.
do to
Yeah,
make them?
what's envisaged with the goalposts is what we had last time, which is 4x2s sandwiched together, so you've got 4x4, the two uprights, and it would mirror the ones on the kick wall. So there's similar sort of size and just post-created into the ground. And the other ones lasted a good few years till they were wrecked, smashed up and then taken out.
And they go into postcrete?
Into post-crete, yes. So they won't be removed.
Mm.
They'll stay there, they're permanent. As the others were there for well over 2 years, no problem whatsoever. And they were quite popular. Lots of kids used to use
And you're
them.
talking about doing that opposite the half mugger on
That's it.
Coronation Field.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the story about doing them on the other field?
Well-
We'd have to ask Ashford.
Yes, and also the fact that they are concreted in.
Right.
That was my issue. If you're putting it, if you're going to put something on that nobody would, you'd be able to remove it without
Yeah.
anybody knowing
Right.
that wouldn't be a problem. But as it's a semi-permanent fixture, I thought Coronation Field would be
Okay.
as it's ours.
Right.
Was
Fair
my
enough.
opinion.
Okay, thanks for that explanation, Alice.
Yeah.
Other things to raise in the public session?
Could I just ask Nicholas, would you like a drink?
I'm fine.
You sure?
I don't keep certification.
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Do you want to raise your concerns about the street, Nicholas, because this is the time to do it?
I haven't really feel really
I think the subject of potholes and problems with our roads
since they've gone on
is a universal job, but it also leads on to other things. I would say though that one thing that has been quite interesting is that if you take a photograph of a pothole and you report it to KCC, they actually take action. 2 or 3 potholes that are doing, let's say, our house or my house and the street have been filled and dealt with. I won't say fantastically well, but that's that. Second thing though, which is, let's say, the real major problem, is that I think virtually a large number of the, or part road between Wittersham and Peasmarsh, which is well frequented by particularly people taking their children to school at great speed in their cars. It has, because it is not actually wide enough to take 2 cars, you are always going into, if I call it, the gully either side, which is pretty nasty and pretty dangerous. And it is extremely serious, okay, if you're on a motorbike. I mean, I think anybody who goes on a motorbike down that road is an idiot, but unfortunately we did have an accident just outside, and a person who wanted to go and get some petrol came off, and okay, we had the ambulance and heaven knows what else. But to me, one of the fundamental things that could be done is the subject of water. The drains, certainly down that road there, are either blocked or non-existent. Consequently, if you've got, and I know from the Lund's house to our house, the water crosses the road 3 times. And in doing so, it therefore creates a gully or a gully either side. If there were drains, you would have a reduced problem. It wouldn't solve the problem. But the subject of drains not being working properly, taking the road, is something that should be resolved, I would hope, at local level. I also think that somebody also ought to think we allowed a person to build a barn, okay, in a field, etc. And in building the barn, okay, which was approved and passed here, it didn't actually work out is that the distance between the road and the barn, or getting into the field, goes over broadband cables. So we've been out of broadband twice for 10 days. Broadband and Wi-Fi are part of a lot of people's lives, and so it's been I think that there ought to be greater thought, is when planning permission is given, is that we ought to know that they've got to actually do something about those things before, and not suddenly say, oh, here's a piper, let's just cut it off. Because you'll get all sorts of people who are actually putting up a barn who might not be experts on broadband. But I also think that we have got the problems of agricultural machinery or agriculture widening our roads. They are particularly, I'd say, coming between Newton's house down that end, okay, coming past our house, but vast amounts of sewage, not sewage, manure, etc., is being, because of requirement for the manure to be used on the vines. But a lot of damage has been done to the sides of the roads, and means, again, the road coming out of Wittersham, coming out, down, up towards Peasmarsh, is widened with a gully at either side. And it's a mess. And I know that Kent County Council hasn't got any money, so
Okay.
where's it going from?
I think we all understand completely everything you're saying. The problem is understanding it and seeing anything done are two different things. My understanding, which is not particularly tight, on the drainage issue of ditches running down the side of roads is that it is complicated and it is not particularly Kent's problem or Highway's problem. It's often the landowner either side. When you had the problem a few years ago, you went into that and heard all about how it was really up to the landowners and all the rest of it. But ditches would obviously make sense because there's no point of water spreading across the road. The agricultural machinery going off the road, because they're good at running down fields, they go off the road without a second thought, and of course they damage the ditches and or the side, and they break the tarmac. I totally agree with you, and I don't know what on earth will ever stop that. The road will not be hardened and widened for sure. How many thousand miles of the road have they got in Kent, did they say the other day?
Did, yes.
I think maybe 3,000 miles of roads. We can certainly nag, but I don't think we get very far with it. One other little tiny thing before I go to Alan. You did say earlier, I think maybe you didn't mean this, that the barn was approved here. All we do is support it. It's up to Ashford if they approve it or not, and they did.
Yeah.
All we did was say we saw no reason to object, despite your canvassing at the time, because you came to see us. We took the view that I think probably that it was going to go through, and it did. Alan?
It matters, I think, be careful for what you wish for. They repair all your potholes, which makes the road more attractive and faster. There's no way it's ever going to be widened. So they repair all your potholes and then everybody speeds along much more quickly. Now, that becomes more attractive to industrial vehicles and farm vehicles and so on. There is out there, I'm not saying in this room, a mood that let them close my road, because then I have a nice, quiet, peaceful road. I won't be disturbed by heavy traffic because it will be, nobody will be able to go up and down it. People will stick to the main roads and you won't be disturbed by anybody. You'll have to get in and out, but be careful for what you wish for, because all the repairs you're going to do isn't going to make it slower and more and quieter. It's going to disrupt your life even more.
I'm not saying, I said that the potholes is not the problem.
No,
The problem is, in my opinion, is the fact is that the road is narrow.
and that's never going to happen.
Well,
You don't want to motorway down there anyway.
but it is narrow, and okay, the gullies either side, if I put it that way, etc., has been sufficiently created, okay, not only by farmyard etc., but also because the drainage system is not functioning. I don't know. And if you get the drainage system going, I mean, okay, all right, we're in an extreme situation at the moment, but we really want to be able to get it so that, you know, people aren't always having to go, you know, off the road to get from one end to the other. So that's what I'm, you know, trying to put forward.
There's nothing you said that's wrong, Nicholas. The problem is whether we can see it leading anywhere, and I'm afraid I wouldn't want to be giving you any false hope there.
Is there a possibility that, just thinking, when you get to the other side of the river, is it the other side of Blackwall, that part of the road going up to Peasmarsh, there are probably around 7 or 8 passing places. But when you go from here down to Blackwall, there are far fewer passing places. And I don't know whether there are possibly 2 or 3 areas that we could persuade highways to look at, just to put in a sort of widen the tarmac by, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet to create a passing place, even though just a couple. And I just wondered if that might be of more success. They're never going to widen the whole thing.
No.
But I wonder if that could be a possible solution that would at least be worth looking at. And the other thing is that, I'm not trying to point the finger of blame here, but the agricultural vehicles, I mean, over the years, they've grown hugely since I was last on a tractor. They're massive, they're huge, these things. But they are pretty much restricted to probably 3 or 4 landowners. Now, I'm looking, but at the very least, we could at least sort of write to the landowners to say, it is a growing problem. Please would you remind your drivers that to try not to. I mean, it's probably going to have a little effect, but at least it's a very small step that would at least show that we understand the situation and we've communicated back to them. I don't think, knowing the landowners, that they would just completely tear up the letter and chuck it in the bin. I think they might
agree with
miss
you. I
it.
think, in fact, actually, they could actually miss going through the village, right? They
Well,
could go directly from farmyards on that end.
It's sort of actually just sort of kicking the can to another part of the road, if you excuse the mixed metaphor.
No, but they could go over land to get it to
Possibly,
where they
yeah.
wanted to move.
But a lot of these drivers are on contracts.
I think the
It's
trouble
time
is that
dependent.
the farms, because they rent land, aren't actually contiguous. When I've spoken to Tim Piper in the past, he says, that's not us. He said, that would be so-and-so. But he goes down there because, and it's not, they can't go from their field to the next, to the next, to the next, because they've got bits here and there. But it's an interesting idea that Paul raises. As for the passing places, entirely possible, I imagine, but it may be, and I'm only, again, I haven't got a measure out or anything, it may be that the Kent part is actually wider on the whole. The Sussex end towards Peasmarsh, some bits are very narrow, and it may be that is the difference. But again, I mean, it's an interesting idea to explore. Okay, anybody else?
Could I make one other suggestion? It's the subject of a large amount of thing is we don't have a school bus any longer. Why the school bus disappeared, I don't know.
I do.
I would have thought that.
Don't have a school bus. I've seen a school bus. Yeah. It goes to Stone and collects the children and comes back.
Does it? Oh, well, I don't
For
see,
Wittersham?
etc. Well,
Well,
that's,
news to me. I thought that had been.
I will be interested.
Maybe it's gone recently, I don't know.
School buses led to a fairly major squabble between me and the now leader of Kent County Council when he was still a cabinet member for young people and education. We were writing furiously to each other some years ago. I didn't get anywhere. They were giving me a load of old cobblers about why they were able to avoid their obligations, which I don't believe held water. But then, as we're hearing tonight in Parliament, they can have their different views on these things and all disagree. The fact is that, and then Roger Goff, now leader, was talking to Calc AGM only 2 weeks ago and said the problems killing off the financial stability of KCC are adult social care, children's social care, school transport. It is that big a problem, he said. When I was arguing with him, they were spending 28 million a year on school transport, 21 million of which was for special needs children, putting them in taxis and sending them to places like Tunbridge Wells. And they feel that's an obligation, they've got to do it, so they withdrew all the ordinary school buses as far as they could to pay for it. And that's their choice that the council has made, I'm afraid. But again, you're not wrong, Nicholas. I think it's ludicrous they don't have school buses. But if you're the Kent County councillor with no money, you say, how do I do it?
I don't know, it's just, okay, not knowing the financial aspects of it, it's just that the numbers of cars are coming up, okay, at great speed.
It would be logical to have a bus, you're absolutely right. The one bus that used to go through Wittersham a while ago from the coach company at Appledore, the one bus that used to do it, they've got two now, I know, and it went to Homewood. That cost them 44,000 a year about 6 years ago. You know, these are huge amounts of money, I'm afraid. It's crazy. Okay, can I close the public session then? Fine, good. So thank you everybody for that. Oh, do you want to say something?
Only just do help yourselves to mince pies and sausage rolls and wine, you know. Can't take them around, so do it yourselves.
Get stuck in there. Right, back to the meeting then. So to confirm the minutes of the meeting last time in November, can I ask if anybody has got any concerns with the minutes?
No.
Can I have a
Yes.
agreement?
Yes.
Everybody happy that they're all right for me to sign?
Yes.
Good.
The trouble is, there's been an increase, considerable increase. When he's coming to school here,
Bye.
so it's going right from then. That's the difference. You get one thing and it's right.
Okay.
Whoever says something.
Right. Matters arising then. The bus shelter update. We have some progress. Yvonne has been chasing up potential bidders. One bidder is keen and has already had a meeting with herself, myself and Greg Panoya, the architect who's advising us. He has had a discussion with us about exactly what he would do, what is needed, and he's given us a price. Yvonne is trying to get any of the others involved, and if we can, so well and good. If not, then what I would ask is that we would go with that single tender.
What is the price, Jeremy?
I don't really want to mention it on the microphone because obviously we might be asking other people what they would charge.
Yeah.
So I think the thing is, it's a little bit more than he identified to us before, which we talked about a few months ago. But on the other hand, it would now include cutting back the concrete base of the thing and putting in some sandstone blocks where he's taking a bit of the wall out at the front. So in other words, a little bit more work.
How does it compare with buying, purchasing?
It's a bit more, but then it's a bit more than that was. But if you remember, that was 9,000 and something, then 1,000 for delivery, and all that was a little narrow thing which you could perch your backside in, and it wouldn't fit in terms of being the original one that we've had for 70 years and fits the conservation area. Whereas the one we're talking about will look the same afterwards, apart from opening up the front and widening the windows.
Okay.
Well, having gone through the process so far, I don't think we can keep delaying and delaying
No,
because the condition of it
we've
is.
already had the member grant that Mick arranged for us as well.
Yeah.
We've got to get on with it.
Yeah.
Can I suggest that we set a time moratorium on it for the others?
Well, I sort of said
and just say,
when I responded to this, I said we will be making a decision at our January meeting.
well, I think we should say any interest needs to be expressed by the 31st of December, end of the year. That's given people plenty of time,
Okay.
and if they're really interested, they could get a bid in.
Yeah, I would support that.
That's fine.
I mean, the length of
And
time.
then
it's
that gives
going.
us the opportunity at the January meeting to say, okay, what's the interest, what have we got,
Okay.
and we can make a decision.
I mean, there's not going to be much real time between now and the January meeting, which will be in the first half of January.
Even so, we need to pursue it.
Okay. The Swan ACV update, we talked about that before. It was granted. I mean, this has been sitting here for a while. The Swan is actually open at the moment again.
It's open every day till Christmas,
Yes,
3
indeed.
p.m.
I did even hear maybe to the new year.
We did.
No. I think it started
Is it,
today.
is it on the win at the moment?
It's on the win.
On the win.
Yeah. Yes. But that's how it is. The safe entrance to pedestrians to the War Memorial, I circulated a note that I'd drafted saying what we wanted to do. And we got some very nice drawings done by Greg, which you've seen. I've asked our borough councillor, Johnny Shilton, to try and find the listings person that we can talk to about it, who to be willing to talk to about it, because their website says they will not talk about listing applications. So I'm hoping we can get them to do it anyway, because otherwise we're just going to be going to and fro, you know, little by little until we can eventually agree on something. I'd like to see it done. It's one of those things where how much concern the council, the planning authority raises is kind of sort of discretionary, I think. They don't have to make a big fuss. It's the curtilage of the memorial, which is listed, that we're talking about, that we do have health and safety issues. They can say, not a problem, the memorial will be looking very nice afterwards, or they can say, oh no, you can't do anything because it's been like that before, you know, not possibly consented. So, in which case we'd have to just put it in and appeal. So we're trying to be nice and find a way to have a discussion, explain what we want to do, take any advice from them, so we can get on with it.
I think the health and safety would be a big aspect.
I would think so.
A lot of them are very hot once they have been made aware.
Indeed, yeah.
Once they've been made
It's-
aware. Yeah.
That's right.
Safety.
So Johnny's got that, and it's up to him at the minute. Trouble is, of course, he's busy, he has a full-time job,
Yeah.
but to try and find who can help.
Yeah.
And in fact, you might want to make a comment afterwards if you know the people.
We do discuss things.
Good. Planning application to fell the fir tree. You were told you could do it.
Yes, they've raised no objection on that. I have already got a quote. I asked Richard T. Smith, you know, the chap that normally cuts our trees down, and he's given a quote of 450. I would recommend going with that because he does a lot of work for UK networks, power networks, and we've got a power line close by. It's also the road close by, and we know that he's got the wherewithal machinery-wise.
It becomes an health and safety issue.
So
The only thing I would say about that is that there is somebody about who I know who would do it for half the cost. But if economics are not a major factor within this, then we'll leave it as it is.
I think on this particular one, but I would welcome the name in future, please.
Yeah, I thought we got to the stage of agreeing that, and that £450, which the priest already mentioned.
I think that's jolly expensive for what it is.
Well,
and if we can throw our money around, that's fine. If we can't, then there's a cheaper way. But I'm in your hands.
That's chop it and remove it all, of course, and remove it all.
Oh yes.
Well, what do people think?
So that's to cut the tree down and take the stump
Everything away.
out. And
No, it would just be down to ground level,
just
and
cut it down.
everything will be taken
Wow.
away.
Trouble with taking the stump out, apart from the fact that he is not a stump grinder, is you're right on the path.
power joint, that's the problem.
Mm.
Incidentally, if you did take the stump away, what you then do, of course, is your path falls just inside the gate.
That would be standard.
So we're just talking about lopping and chopping.
Yeah, down to ground
It's
level.
very expensive for what we're getting is very expensive. But
It's a good point. I mean, I've used T.G. Smith on several occasions,
yes.
and I would say
I've got nothing against him. He's
no,
not me.
no, but he's not cheap. And I'm not. He does very good work. However, it doesn't to me seem a complicated challenge, because we're not actually wanting the stump removed, which he's done before. Have you? It's literally just sort of felling it and then
It's the
removing
sort of
it.
thing that will be finished by 11 o'clock in the morning.
So
Have you gone and looked at the fact that it's not our trunk, by the way? The trunk is because of the divisions. It's about this. Is it? Am I exaggerating?
No, it is
No,
About
it's
that
spread.
size.
Right. Okay.
I think Yvonne's point about,
Yeah.
and Colin
Future.
made the point that we sort of made a decision. We made the decision, and it's in hand.
Yeah.
But
I
Yvonne's point about in future,
I just
it's I think it's a really valid point.
I think there's a number of issues that's been going around that have been going on and on for various reasons. I think the village needs to see that some actions are taken.
We're doing that then. Fine. The goalposts update. We've heard from Alf. Then, are we happy that he put something in as a new goalpost in Coronation Field like the old one?
Yep,
With
absolutely.
the two befores doubled up and post treated. Good. Okay, that's agreed. The sports club lease update. This was something that was raised by councillors. They wanted a letter to the sports club asking what was going on with the lease update, and Yvonne wrote. She has had a reply, which she has copied to you.
Yes.
it's worse than John Dice and John Dice now.
It,
Worse than John Dice. John Dice and John Dice
Bleak House.
didn't go on this long.
The challenge, I think, they went on to the money ran out basically. The challenge they've got is that the I don't know about today, but as a week ago, the current draft is very similar to the old one, which is next to useless going forward. So they're kind of stuck at the moment.
Have they seen the draft then? Someone has.
I suspect that given that they compared, that they must have done.
Okay.
And I
Fair
think
enough.
Paul Hutchison's letter was very generous
Yes, I
and
agree.
nice, but gave absolutely nothing away. It didn't help us forward
No,
money.
no, the letter didn't tell us a great deal at all, if anything.
It's a delicate state at the moment.
But then it's been delicate throughout the last 20 years.
All right. Okay, the other thing I was just going to raise here, just for you to be aware in the meeting here, is that somebody in the village had stirred up Ashford Planning Department, Planning Enforcement, to look into the planning permission of the sports club, not for the first time, and they have written to say that they're taking no action.
Yes,
Well done then.
that's my understanding.
It'll come back.
But it's like a
I believe
tennis ball.
the correspondence files one way or another continue. Right, the state of the B2082 road surface in Iden. Someone raised last month, I think, about how poor that was. And Yvonne, you contacted the parish council.
I spoke to Mary Philo, and she replied that the council is always complaining about it, but it falls on deaf ears as the road is only a B road. We do manage to get some patching, but the real issue is drainage. Until the ditch along the side is dug out, the water will continue to lay in heavy rain and destroy the service that is there. We can mention complaints from Kent at the meeting. Well, she copied in, obviously, the chairman of her parish council, who then wrote to, I imagine it's Keith Glazier, who I presume is their county councillor.
He is.
Yeah. And he said to him, please see exchange of emails with us. Situation on this stretch of road is, alas, getting worse, aggravated by the frost. So he went on about damaged tyres, how well Rye Tyres is doing out of all the damaged tyres. And then he did actually get somewhere. Keith has replied to the chairman, but copied me in, and he said I've just returned from driving Carl Taylor, whoever he might be, through Iden to the Kent border and back. We have made notes and the steward will attend next week. I hope there is a positive conclusion and I'll keep you informed. So they've obviously got their highway steward out on it, but it's
Something
horrendous.
similar in Kent. Get Iden to complain about Kent.
But even we haven't.
Yeah.
That is just
But it is.
horrendous. Anyway, so
It
but
isn't-
I have
it is-
said that if there's anything that we can do to help them, let us know.
This is bad.
We do.
Mm.
And we've embarrassed them.
Good.
Okay, on we go. The planning applications. The appeal against ABC's refusal for the field with the barn and the permission to create an office, which they now want to make residential. The question is, do we need to put anything different in or whatever? From last time, we've made all those points.
No, but we are. I thought we'd agreed that we would not change anything.
It wasn't here.
We did.
We did that, but it wasn't here. Okay, that's good. So we'll just carry on with that. Do you could maybe just I stand by my original comments or whatever. Consider purchasing a replacement defibrillator if it isn't possible to purchase a replacement battery and pads. Yvonne's dealing with the new first responder.
Yeah.
We do need a new battery and some new bits, and the question is whether they're available now for a defibrillator, which is, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. Do you have that?
More than, yes, I do. That particular model is no longer available. However, I have traced it. Well, I got it in 2014 through Calc, but I have traced. I think battery and pads which were delivered to me just before I came out.
Oh, good.
So I'm hoping I've got the defib in my car. I picked it up on Saturday so that I can hopefully sort it out so that it should be back and working.
Good.
But I wanted it on just in case I couldn't, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
so,
I understand that.
and the other thing is that we have been informed that the British Heart Foundation are giving away free defibrillators.
Oh,
However, the criteria for that we don't actually
meat.
Yes, you see, it has to be the clear need in a busy location, and it can't be near one that's already there within 200 metres. So this is obviously the busiest. I mean, the obvious place would be the pub. That's because there's nothing up that end. There's one at the sports club. There's one at school. There's hopefully one here, but there's nothing down there. So if the pub was up and running all the time, that would be a good place. But however, it doesn't look as if we could have that one.
Okay.
What's more relevant though than any of this is anybody actually trained to use it?
Joe is, apparently it's very clear as to what you have to do.
Yeah.
We did have training, John Rivers did
Yeah.
training
Yes.
a couple of times. He did when we first had it and then he did a separate one. But Joe is very happy to come along and do it and also do some basic first aid as well.
Well, that's important because basically when it comes to an event like this, when it's needed, most people are too terrified to touch
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Sure.
And that's the problem.
Can I
So-
just ask, the one in the sports club is obviously inside the sports club, so it's only available when Ray has opened up the sports
Yeah.
club.
Which is the same as school, you see, school
Is the
is
school one the same?
Yes.
Is the school one obvious, or is it just we've got to get into the school first?
Yes.
So this is the only one
Yes.
that's available
It's
to the
outside.
public.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the
Is
moment.
there? Does it have to be on public property, the defibrillator, or could a private individual have it on the edge of their gate or something? I'm not just looking at Sally here, but she sort of lives nearest the pub. But I mean, I'm trying to think outside the box.
Well,
We've only got one in the entire village that's available 24/7, and people have mentioned the fact that the note saying it's been out of action. There's nothing in the village. So the nearest one, forget the sports club and the school, I guess is Small Hyde telephone box, is it?
Yeah, probably.
So one in there, is it?
In that direction,
That's
yes.
what there's one down there.
I don't know going.
What do you mean you would have known that apart from you?
I knew that.
Well, it flashes when you
No,
go
there's a
by.
notice
It's
on
not some new type of
I
digital
wonder-
telephone in there.
I wonder what that flash is.
There we go.
Right. Well, yes.
Or maybe even the other way.
Oh.
I mean, it sounds slightly ironic, but could it be on the outside wall of is that 200 metres of the garage? Because bear in mind that was when something like an incident like last happened in the village.
I thought if this one doesn't work,
Yeah.
then we don't have one here.
Yes.
Therefore, we are more than 200 metres away. The only thing would be whether they have a rule that says we won't pay for one where you've already had one before.
The church?
Well, there are you, the church warden, Alan.
Well, if it's on the wall of the church, then it'd be available
It's-
24/7. wouldn't it?
We're open 9 till 4.
But this one's on the outside. And the others are all inside and
Yeah.
not
You've
accessible.
got to get
out
an
of the
electrical
outside.
connection.
Well, that
We
shouldn't
do
be a
have
problem.
electric.
We do it out to the out to the defibrillator.
Yeah.
Well, it's a thought because it's a landmark. People know where it is.
More than 200 metres.
It's more than 200 metres. I think it's worth investigating at
Yeah,
least.
I've got my permission to investigate it.
Right.
Could I just make a general comment then? What about asking if we could have one on the side wall of Bax's shop?
That's a good idea.
Because
That's a good idea.
that's the most people will pass that way. And when we had one or two problems with other matters, it's all been centred around the shopping area.
I think that's a really good suggestion.
Just taking it in Owen's court there on the corner,
That's it.
if he was prepared to.
See. We can see.
Tanks is always very cooperative. So.
Mm.
Okay. We can ask.
Okay. Well done. Good suggestion.
Right.
It's closing date's 15th of March for these.
For the free one. Okay. Good.
Apply for 2.
Right, we're on to the budget proposal. Let's put that away. Right. Yvonne produced a budget proposal from the system that we have, this thing here. Takes a lot of pages, I'm afraid. Does anyone have any points on that? Go on.
No, I've got didn't mine down. I left mine at home, but I had a copy, and I was a reasonably thorough examination, and I felt that the logic was to include it by 2%.
That's good. Anyone else with comments?
No, I'd agree with. I had the same thought as Colin.
Right. Now,
Do you want to look at this one?
I was asked
And
when we come, there's two parts to this. One is the budget and one is the precept proposal.
Mm.
Now, moving on to the precept proposal, which comes from the budget, or vice versa, the budget comes from the precept proposal. I was asked to look into the effect on individual houses if we did go up 2%, which is the usual government, no brainer as it were, everyone can go up 2%. We can do other things because we don't have a government cap, but 2% they're allowed to any of the bigger councils as well. I've sent an email out this afternoon to tell you exactly how this works because people don't always quite understand it. Band A to H, with D as the standard one. The way in which the charging basis works from 6 ninths to 18 ninths, which I turned into decimals. The amount that we charged last year to each house that falls into one of those bands.
Yes.
And what it would do if we went up by 2%.
Yeah.
Which means that for band A, which is typically in Wittersham, a small bungalow, like in Forge Meads or the Signets, it would go up 76 pence a year. And if it was a big house, an H, we don't have many H's, we have G's, then it would be £2.27 a year, 4 pence a week.
That's right.
So not a lot. That would take our precept from 35,000 to 35,700.
Yes.
Now, I also, since sending this out to you, did another little bit of examination because I was asked where we stood in the list of Ashford parishes. At the minute, for a band D in Wittersham this year, we charge £62.50,
Yeah.
which is 29 in a list of 42. That's towards the higher end. But we come 29 out of 42. There are 13 higher than us.
Yes.
But we're more than halfway down.
That's right.
The interesting thing then is that if you take the average charge for all houses in Wittersham, all houses in Ashford,
yeah.
by taking the whole number of houses and the millions of pounds that are raised by parish councils, and it is a few million by the way, then the average across the whole of ABC last year is £72.69, which is £10.19p more than us. So on that basis, the point is that the big, and we're 86% of the average. The point is that the big councils charge more,
That's right.
not less.
Yeah.
So when you've got Tenterden, Great Chart, Charing, Wye,
yes. Then you will have
and a
more
few
as the
others,
buildings develop.
they push it.
Yeah.
They push it up.
Yeah.
So in terms of overall average in Ashford, we're still 10 quid lower.
I think we're very secure on that position.
Good. Okay. Brought all of that with me in case you wanted it.
Sure.
But funnily enough, you see, even Appledore, 71 quid. Brook, don't even know where that is, somewhere near Ashford.
It's on the way to Wye.
Edgerton, Aldington, Newington's high because they had the disaster over their village hall, and they've also had to hire a clerk, which in a tiny parish is difficult.
But I think that the 2% is.
We were zero last year because
Yes,
of
it was.
thinking of the
pandemic.
cost of living. In fact, it went down 0.1 because of a rounding thing. So I think 2%, it gives us an extra £700. We are quite well off with money in the bank, which we need to spend on the projects, but we're not actually making much.
No.
And the caretaker scheme is quite tight now. So, I think that's the right answer.
But I think with the projects we have in mind, and hopefully more and more are going to come to fruition in the next few months, we're going to be
we need the money.
looking at our finances again.
Good. Okay. So we've agreed 2%, 35. That'll make 35,700. Can I have a proposer for that?
Yes, I'll
Colin,
propose it.
Seconder.
Yes.
Sue. Everyone agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unanimous. Good. Thank you. Right. Confirm support of the village climate change meetings. This is a small thing. There have been 2 meetings in this room which were organised by Greg Penoyer and his partner Kate Miller to try and get a conversation going with like-minded individuals in the village about what people can do on climate change.
Yeah.
And it was suggested to Yvonne, and I'm certainly very much in favour of this, and let me declare that I have attended one of the meetings. I had COVID for the other one, but I did attend a meeting. I suppose that is an other than interest. But that rather, it's a bit invidious when they are leading on this for us, which is good,
Yeah.
but it's come from the community. It's a bit invidious that they are potentially paying the hiring for the hall when we could do it instead. So what this is about is saying, will we confirm our support that we'd cover the cost of hiring the hall for those meetings?
Yeah, I put confirm because I was at the first one and I did suggest, obviously I couldn't say,
How often,
but I
how often
did
are you
suggest
talking
that
about?
they...
How
There's
often?
been 2 since September.
2 since September.
It's not a lot.
So it wouldn't be, it's not going to be, yes, I think we should support this.
I think that it's good for the village that
I
we
think it
have
is.
them, and the fact that we can, I won't say take credit for them, but we can point out that they exist is actually quite helpful.
I think it is helpful. They're responding on behalf of the village.
Indeed, and you'll see further down we come into it for items of information as well. So is everyone happy with that?
Yes,
Good.
yes, thank
That's
you.
fine. Except the final draft of financial regulations, I realised a week or 2 ago that I thought I'd done it all, but I hadn't actually, after our last discussion, just finalised them by, accepting all the track changes and making sure I hadn't left any typos in there and what have you. And I've done that and sent it out. And we just need to formally agree that we now have those as our financial regulations. And if you recall, the principle of it is it's the one that I have written and we've agreed, we've seen it in the past, give or take any minor, tiny changes, with an appendix, which is the 2 delegations that we agreed a year or 2 ago, the one that we operate under at the minute and the one that is available in the event that we have another COVID type crisis when we can't meet. And then there's an annex, which is the calc version, which we've said we'd treat as guidance but not an obligation, because we've written our own. But it has some things in it which are useful, best practice if it suits. They're not quite the calc ones because I took out bits that we were definitely never ever going to do. They're just not relevant to us. But you will find that's all there. And if we're happy with that, Yvonne will get them all printed off and copied for your books. Yes, everybody
Happy.
A proposal?
Yeah. Yes.
Sally?
Yeah.
Seconder? Sue?
Yeah.
Everybody on for that? Okay, so that's our financial regulations. I'm sorry it took me a long time to get back to it, but that's polished off. Good. Where are we now? Willingness in principle to meet both sides' legal and land registration fees and costs in the event of land being donated to the council free of consideration or for a nominal sum. This is interesting. I've been badgering for years as to whether Ashford would give us some land.
Yes.
And I never got anywhere. It was always just getting buried and, oh yes, of course, oh yeah, nothing heard. So I asked Johnny to look into it. Johnny he gave a note, I gave him a note, he changed it a bit and gave it to the portfolio holder for environment, which apparently is the one, who is a Green and is the ward councillor for Walden, a woman. And he saw her briefly in a margins of a meeting the other day, and I said, what's the score on that? And she said, no problem at all in principle. I mean, this is just the portfolio holder, of course, it's not a decision. No problem in principle, the only question is budget. And I went back to him and he told me that, and I said, well, what's the question about the budget? I mean, I don't quite see where that comes in. And he said, well, the cost of doing it, the legal fees and the land, the land registration. And what I've said to him is I would ask the council, but my view was that since we paid the fees when we took the donation of land for the cemetery, which would be absolutely normal, you don't expect people to give you land and then pay to do it, we would do the same. But we do need
What
to...
land are we talking about?
The village green,
Okay.
and possibly anything else around the village green if they were so minded. But the village green is the most obvious because it has no commercial value whatever.
Can I ask, I mean, how much land do we actually own, the parish council own at the moment?
We are the title holder but not the beneficial owner of this place. We own the existing cemetery and the space to extend it. We own the war memorial, the little entry for the bus shelter, and Coronation Field and Memorial Garden.
What would your very rough estimate of the total of that?
As in what, how many square yards?
How many,
Well, which
how
one?
many hectares?
Haven't a clue. I wouldn't know a hectare if I tripped over it.
How many acres then?
Same.
I think you should give wording to this question.
It's not much. Paul once said in a parish council meeting, the trouble with Wittersham is it doesn't own much land.
I think that is a
This won't
potential
make
problem.
much difference.
And this is going to come up just a little bit later in the agenda. And I mean, the crucial figure I think is 12 acres. But anyway, it's not
I think
appropriate
it's
now.
probably around about 6.5 acres.
Yeah, that's a pity. But then if we could get our hands on the rest of that, it would make a
Maybe
difference.
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
I can imagine the way your mind
The
works.
village green has been sitting there like
Yeah.
from child for
Mouldering.
years and years and years and years, and it hasn't got a commercial value, but it makes sense for it to be within the asset base of the village,
Yeah.
of the parish council.
I think, in fact, the seminal, the central point is I think it's 12 hectares. Anyway, so we haven't got anywhere near that.
No.
So
Not at the moment.
no, anyway, we might have if we get all this together, possibly. I mean, I can never remember how much a hectare is in relation to an acre.
2.5.
Hold on, there you are, you see.
You see?
Right. So anyway, it's for another agenda item later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's potentially forward
Well,
movement.
Well, if it went through,
Yeah.
her view certainly as portfolio holder is we're delighted to get a shot of stuff that's just a
Yeah.
waste of space, you know. But we just don't want to spend the money doing it, and I can totally understand that. So that would be, I think that would be a good reason. I mean, even if we only got the village green, which is the bit we want most,
Yes.
it would enable us to start talking about tidying up the land surface,
Yeah.
because it's not what you'd really want to play football on. It's a bit sort of, you know. It includes the pond. The pond is part of the village
Pond,
green, so
yeah.
that frees up the opportunity to go and do something about that.
Yeah.
And it gives us the opportunity then to have our own way in terms of moving and building a better play area
Correct.
with major fundraising,
Yeah.
with grants or whatever, but at least we would have the starting point. At the minute we don't have the starting point.
No. We have the potential ground to be able to do that.
So is that agreed?
The other thing is it's not unusual for law firms to do pro bono work for the community.
Sure.
So it's worth at least exploring that. And
Yeah.
land registry charges are
You're right.
minimal. So there really isn't a massive cost implication of doing this. But as Jeremy says, it frees us up to do all sorts of things that have been, stuck in transit for year after year.
That's right. It did. Good. So we agreed on that.
Yes. Certainly.
Yeah, I wanted that in there just so that we were making clear that we could do it. So would you like to then write back to Johnny and say the count once you've, whatever. I don't think we'll wait another month to get the minutes agreed. You write and say it was discussed at the meeting and it's been agreed unanimously. Right, correspondence to the Coronation Living Heritage Fund. That's one for you, I think.
It's when I circulated to everybody.
Good.
Also, our tree warden had something similar and came to me about it. And he had been put off quite seriously by the fact that when he tried to put an orchard up on between Jubilee Field and the play area, or Woodland View and the play area, they came up with lots of excuses. I think I explained the whole in the email that I sent round to you. And then when ABC wanted to put trees, they came up with two, Aspire identified two areas. One was the same sort of area, the other was where the paddock was. We were quite happy where the paddock was, but the thought was that if you're going to put lots of trees between Woodland View and the play area, then parents wouldn't be able to see their children, so we vetoed that one. But nothing came of that.
No.
So they were the only areas that we thought we could put trees at the time.
Indeed. Well, years back now, when they were talking at Ashford about doing the big tree scheme for the Queen's Jubilee, I had the chap from Bud's Lane, whose name I've forgotten at the minute, comes to the gardens quite often.
Was it called C-A-W-T-E?
Clyde.
Yeah. No, not Clive.
No,
But it is called C-A-W-T-E. Anyway, he had come and he knocked on my door one Saturday morning and said he was talking to Charlie Parsons about some land, and he'd got some land and they could plant some trees because Ashford was looking for this however many thousand trees it was they wanted to put in, hundreds of thousands. And I was on the Land Mapping Commission at the time, where the lady who is now in charge of a large part of Ashford, ABC, but was then one step down, she used to come and she was in charge of environment, and I talked to her about it. I said, I've got this person who's very keen to give you some space for trees, which I kept saying, oh, does anyone want some trees? And I told her, and she said, fine, that's good, really, put them on to us. I did all the emails, you know, to the person responsible and her and all the rest of it. Nothing have happened at all. So, you know, they lose interest, really. Anyway, on we go. Now, someone with whom one of our councillors has an interest, Wittersham Broadband.
I sort of declared it, shouldn't I? Well, there's a bit of a follow-up.
I don't think it's, well, it might be a pecuniary, we might throw you out in the cold.
You've seen Mrs. Lloyd-Smith's letter, haven't you?
Yes.
There is a follow-up, because I had the engineer out on Thursday, and I mean, our broadband was down like everybody else's for a week or so.
Yeah.
And then since then, we've been down for an hour, up for an hour, down for an hour, up for an hour, and it'd be rather like Nicholas down the road. And then the engineer came out on Thursday and he said, well, there's nothing much I can do. And to be honest, BT have sold you a product that isn't fit for purpose. And if you asked them today to sell you this product, they would realise it wasn't fit for the purpose and they wouldn't sell it to you and they wouldn't provide for you at all. And there are 19 junction boxes between us and the village, and they said they've no intention of putting fibre in there because it would cost £300,000 to £500,000 to do it. And he said, but you are in possession of a product which you're paying for regularly, and you can only get compensation if you're down for 2 consecutive days, I think he said. But I mean, we're up for an hour, down for an hour, up for an hour, down for an hour. And anyway, so he was, he said, and I wouldn't use BT anymore for you. Why don't you get Starlink? But I mean, the trouble with that is it takes your telephone down as well, and it's just like broadband.
That was on you and yours yesterday, I think, or today.
Yeah.
Had a discussion on the radio, on Radio 4 about Starlink. Somebody in your position.
Yeah. So at the moment, we actually are. I think we're connected today, and it didn't go down all day until the power cut at 6:30.
If they don't get you one way, they'll get you another.
You've had 3 today, have you?
About 3 today,
I've been out
yes.
quite a lot today. I've only had one that I knew about.
I think, Alan, my suggestion would be if you've got someone to write an app for you, so that a big light went on when the broadband was working and went off when it wasn't, then every time it went on, you'd know you'd go away and do your emails, and then you wouldn't lose the
That's
time.
a good idea. I mean, the other thing is, though, that I thought I've got to play every card here. And I may have told you this already, and I apologise if I have, that I'm out in the country and I'm elderly and I'm vulnerable and
We've got other words for that.
And in fact, for 10 days, they rang me every morning. How are you today, dear?
Feeling very old, you said.
Have you seen the doctor since I last spoke to you?
My wife's not in at the minute, you
Chance
said.
to do that,
I think perhaps I rather overplayed my hand.
Well done. All right.
I think. Have you got a reasonable mobile signal there?
No.
Okay.
So I can speak to you, but I'll get cut off.
And your next door but one neighbour on that left-hand side, the farm there, is it down Maytham Road or the Maytham Wharf? What's the
Nathan Wharf, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very often I don't know what the farming setup is there, but it's
Well,
a
it's
business.
on hooker, isn't it?
Yeah, but do they rely, because these days most farmers have to submit all their,
Well, he has several farms.
Yeah,
farm in High Walden and stuff.
but broadband is necessary for them to submit to DEFRA. I mean, I'm just thinking, and you've got a first responder opposite you. There's a case, maybe.
Yeah, good point. Yes, we know. Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I yes, it's all very complicated.
But meanwhile, you're on the
So,
radar
every now and again
to be looked after.
Every now and
It's
again,
miles
A good
out.
investment.
I know you're miles out in the sticks, but I don't see where the 500,000 comes from. Are you on a overhead line?
Yes, mainly.
I mean, I
That,
don't know
that
all
would-
the,
that
I
would
don't
be
know all the
bringing-
technical details,
That
but
would
the
be bringing
fibre.
from Wittersham right round to
Yeah.
us.
When I saw some guys up a pole a few months ago, they were putting in pure fibre to the school, paid for by, this is all part of Kent Network. And that was up a pole.
Yes.
So fibre can, whether it only goes up poles and back down them again, I don't know, but it has relations with poles,
Indeed.
and I cannot see, fibre doesn't cost that much. Then
Well,
But
they maintain, he said, would be 3 to 5.
Well, that's what we've
I
got
just don't see
now.
how
We've
it
got
is.
fibre from the pole to
But
the
it
house.
came down
and we've-
past you as far as Pell Street,
Yeah.
and then stopped.
We've
Yeah.
got, and we get 150 megabytes.
And I don't see, I can understand it costs money, and there's not many of you, but 500,000 does not seem at all.
But Wilbur
Sensible.
wants the parish council to take it
Yeah,
take
totally.
it forward, and we will be on
Is it
probably doing
well-
that.
Quite
You write a letter to the chairman of BT, like you
And
did
there's
last
nothing
time.
to do with BT. It's open reach.
So, well, except they know they're
No,
beholden to it.
we're not allowed to have any relation with
Should
BT or with
all
Open Reach.
whatever.
Open Reach only
No,
works
you've
for
got
their
to complain to
commercial
BT and then-
customers.
OpenReach are their engaged provider for repairs.
Indeed.
Mm.
But Open Reach works for BT, Sky,
Virgin,
Talk,
Virgin,
Virgin,
goes
and
on and on.
but they don't work for Alan.
And there are other providers coming in to compete with them, so they're getting left with the remote places like Potman Heath and other
Yes.
more attractive.
Well, you should be getting a credit for every day you're out.
But
It's in the
you've got to be
contract.
out for the whole day. We're not out for the whole day. We're out for an hour and then back in for an hour and then out for an hour.
Okay. Well, you said you're out for a week.
I got
That was-
I would
that
get
was
compensation
when
when
we
the whole
all
village
out.
was out for a week.
When you were out.
When the rats got out of Mervyn's kitchen and ate them.
Okay. Right,
Yes.
on we go. So Nicholas and the road to Peasmarsh, we heard Nicholas's points and he's entirely right,
Mm.
but is there anything that we can do about it?
Well, apart from the two suggestions of writing to the farmers and seeing if we could get one or two lay-bys. The other thing that struck me, these are little things that might make a little bit of difference, but apart from the agricultural vehicles being really large out there, the main challenge is school run in big SUVs. So maybe we should consider approaching the headmaster and say, please would you send a note out to parents to be more considerate and more careful as they go down the road. I mean, no one might take a blind bit of notice, but at least it's something we can do for the old saying of a price of a stamp.
I think
Okay.
he actually does that on a regular basis
Oh, okay.
because people have complained about parking across drives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he does it quite regularly, but
Okay.
So the issue about the passing places, if that would make any difference, that's something that you could take up with the steward, probably is the best way in there to discuss it. And the question of the drainage, wasn't it?
The old one's drainage, yeah.
I think the trouble is that is duck shoving. Kent County Council say no, we have no responsibility for maintaining those drains, that's up to the landowner. And it stops.
Well, unfortunately, the water's been going backwards and forwards 3 times,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
since the Normans arrived.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
No, funnily enough, I think 100 years ago those drains were all maintained. I think
I'm sure they were.
It's a modern problem.
But when I walked down there, the manhole cover on the edge of Wishfield's property, there was raw sewage pouring out of that and going literally straight down the road.
No, I
I've been down there 2 or 3 times since, and it's still laying in water.
Sure.
So there must be something wrong with that drain.
There was a time when Yvonne and I went down and we found there was no cover on a manhole, small manhole in the verge, and they came out and did that, I think. Any of these things that run down hills, I mean, going down a hill should be a good idea if it works well, and it's a bad idea if it doesn't work well because there's all the pressure behind it to just come out somewhere. Swan Street has the same problems, who knows? Okay, so as far as the drainage is concerned, again, I think when you talk to the steward, try to get to the bottom of exactly what they will or won't do. It will be mostly won't. But I mean, the thing is that both Ashford and Kent are actually drainage authorities. They have legal powers, but they're probably deficient and they don't like exercising them. Right. KCC consultation, windmills owned by KCC. Well, we've heard from Mick on that subject. You and I, Yvonne, could fill in that thing before the end of January, I hope. And if everyone goes away and doesn't forget it and fills it in themselves, that will be another handful. My personal view, as I said before, is I think that this is just going through motions. We've got to save some money, so what should we do? Oh, I know, what we'll do is try and sell the windmills. We'll have a consultation. I'm afraid I put the move of ABC Civic Centre into a similar bracket.
I mean, there is a national association of something, isn't there, of the preservation of windmills, and they ought to be involved if they're not already.
Interesting point. Do you know about that, Mick? If I just...
I believe it's called STAB, actually, isn't it?
Right. Adjourn
I
this for a
don't know what it
moment.
quite stands for, but it's similar to that.
Okay.
They are aware.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll start the meeting again, and that just closes that one off then.
I'm going to make a move, Chairman. Thank you, Phil.
Okay.
I'll leave this on the table. This is a paper copy of what has just been spoken about. It's easy to do it online, but just in case.
Thank you very much.
I'm not printing
Thank you,
anymore.
Thank you very much.
Happy Christmas.
And have a safe
Merry
drive.
Christmas.
Safe drive home.
Oh, thank you. I was printed one of that.
That's how Mick got it.
Staff of office.
You're losing something
It's your
else,
turn
mate.
this year.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Is there anything else we need to say about windmills?
Not tonight.
No.
Donkey.
I'll put it on Facebook.
And,
Next
oh
one.
yes, that's right, we said that before. Okay. So Alf has mentioned the van issues, but nothing much to do at the minute except pay the bill when it comes back and hope it lasts a bit longer.
Yeah.
Anything else on the caretaker? No.
No.
Finance, we've got the monthly transaction statements.
Yes.
I went through before and then I never did.
It's in mine now.
I did send out the joint reconciliation page
You did? I thought that was very helpful.
Yes, you did.
so to see how
Yeah,
everything
that's very, I think that's very helpful. It's the same as on the this one here. If
Yeah.
you just pull the numbers out, it says the same thing. It says that's what's on the computer. But it is good to just see what's there and where it is. So can I sign the main transaction
Yes, that-
statement?
I think I will say that CCLA, the interest rate, you can see that's been added. But I did have an email from them to say that they have had to make 2 payments in relation to the November income. The smaller payment relates to the income earned over the weekend of the 18th and 19th of November, when the migration to our new transfer agency provider took place. Unfortunately, on your statement that you've just received, the average yield was incorrect. Correct average yield for the period for the share case was whatever. So that will be
So
an
they
adjustment.
found an error that we wouldn't have known about.
Yeah.
We did see a thing which came in saying they were changing their
Yeah.
repository or whatever they call it.
Yeah, they've got a different account number now.
Can I sign the caretaker one as well, which is a substitute, a subset of the big
Yes,
one?
it is.
I had to change the date, obviously it's not the 31st of November. That's it.
Yeah, okay.
I realised after I printed it out.
Right, so I've done those two, and we had the reserves laid out, which is really, I think, a memorandum for this purpose. What we didn't allow for at the time is that we're going to have speed limits to pay for.
Yeah.
The speed limit, sorry.
Well,
not
the
this.
budget actually been found, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not mentioned in our things there, that's all right. And as Yvonne just said, we've got this thing which is the one we signed for bank reconciliations, which is getting more complicated now because we've got the CCLA account and we've got the deposit account with Unity Trust Instant Access, which Yvonne can just stick a bit down the sofa there and get back very easily without having to do the extra paperwork for CCLA. Yep. And as you can see, we're in good shape. But that's really because we have been just plodding away with a reasonable precept for a number of years without spending it, and we've got quite a few things to do. Planning, the decision received, the felling the fir tree, not falling it, we know.
Yes, and 15 Forge Meads has been granted. They seem to be taking a long time. I did check back, and
is that the porch?
yes, it seems that they had to change it slightly. The planner wanted it
But
slightly
they
different,
granted it.
so it's been granted, but that took a long time to come through. And Court Glebe has just been granted today.
With conditions, but we don't know what
Yes,
they
I
are
haven't got
yet.
any details online yet.
We'll look forward to seeing what they are.
And just while we're on sort of planning, nothing that's on here, but I've just looked, I've been keeping an eye on 16 Lloyd's Green, the one dwelling there, and Southern Water have come back with this 15 metre bit that they wanted. Remember, that's what they said last time. Then there was correspondence, it was brought down to 10, which made the others fit in, but they're now back to saying 15. And also the fire service have come in to say that they need a turning circle because the drive's so long, they need a turning circle. And I don't think that there was...
No. You'll never get a turning circle.
Would you get the fire engine down there? But
there'll be no room for a house if you have a turning circle, will there? So that's okay.
no, so that's a couple of things now that have come up. They're recent.
It's not going to go through.
Right, good. Thank you. Right, open spaces.
Well, I need a new open space operative
Right, you do.
because Leslie is no longer.
We can now see what was behind your comments. Right. That we'll leave that one just resting in the air, I think, Alan. Public rights of way.
I reported last time that the second footpath down Swan Street, the stile there, although it had been repaired, it's actually too high off the ground, the first step to go to get over. I reported back on that, and the public rights of way officer has come out and put 2 concrete breeze blocks, I think, down each side. So we've now got another step to get up onto the step to get over. He's put it each side.
Step for step.
And also the bridge where we go across from the back of Jubilee Field, across towards Owley. There are 2 sleepers, and the handrail had come off. When I sent that through, he said that yes, okay, it'd be done, but because it was so far from the road, it would have to wait until the summer because of the conditions, muddy conditions. However, I went back and said that it's quite high up off the ground, off the gill, and I didn't consider it was safe really without. He's obviously looked at it and said, yes, priority, that will be done, but the extra sleeper, the 3rd sleeper, will have to wait until the summer. But he does consider That's what I'm saying about health and safety. If you tell them, they've got to do something
Yeah.
about it.
Right, good.
Yvonne, can I just ask, as I mentioned earlier, some while back, we're talking about several years, we discussed the public right of way from
Cuckoo.
Rugden Barn to
Cottage.
Cuckoo
Yes,
Cottage. Has anything happened? I know
No.
at the time they were very short of officers to come out and inspect, etc. And this weather is not exactly conducive. But
Too many issues apparently, because that's the one we asked Mike to go through with
Yeah.
again. It's something that I will, because now it's a different officer, I will have a
yeah, and
have a
the
word.
Rugden Barn has changed hands.
Yes.
And the owners in there.
Yes,
They
and
seem
then now,
reasonable people.
well, I do know that the diversion, because they were putting in a diversion because it was going right past the front door.
That was the previous owner, the lady.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
But although it hasn't gone through yet, it's way down on the list. But I think
Okay.
it's accepted that the way through round is now.
Yeah.
But getting to
It's the other end.
Cuckoo Cottage is a big
Yes,
problem.
because that was on the market, but the sign seems to have
I don't think they sold to this come off the market.
come off the
It's
market.
still on the website then.
Yeah.
What, for sale?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just feel that it was sort of, you know, the request for a clear public right of way was ignored and it's all blocked off.
Well, I have,
I know, yeah, I know. I just want to
but
sort
I
of.
will have
Yeah.
and see. Let's
Yeah.
say different officer now,
Yeah,
so I'll
That'd be great. Thank you.
have another.
The oak tree that was laying across the track at the side of Lloyd's Green. You know, the big oak tree that was laying.
Oh yes,
Belonged to Smitings.
yes.
That's now all bar one small piece been cleared.
So that's when Mr. Carpenter. That's what he was waiting,
Waiting
for before
to
he
do the
can
track.
do the track. Thanks, Sue.
And what about did we write to the residents about the dog?
It's on order today.
Right, good.
I work with Alf, and yes, I kept one of those things just kept
Right.
disappearing. I did write, and I haven't heard anything.
Okay,
so,
good.
So it's
Okay, highways. Ignoring the seminar report for a minute because that's further down. Is there anything else? No?
only it does. Nicholas was saying about if you take a photo and
Oh yeah, that's an interesting
and
idea.
report it, it does get. Well, I took a photo of the one at the top of Lloyd's Green last Wednesday. By Friday it had been marked up. Hasn't been filled, but it has been marked up.
Oh.
I'm waiting now for the rain to go away so that, because the between, well, on the way to Acton Lane, there's on the left hand side there's potholes there, but at the moment they're just full of water, so you can't. But it does make a difference if
Yeah.
you can take photos of them.
Are we ready to report? I noticed that the repairs between the Swan Pub and Lloyd's Green are degrading
Yes, the
significantly.
ones they did before, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not at the stage yet probably where they were qualified, but it's going to happen.
No.
So it's
Oh,
all
As I say,
sunk.
when I'm walking
It's all
round,
sunk
as soon as I see something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
take a
Yeah,
photo of it and
right.
report it.
Okay, cemetery and churchyard.
Don't think it's anything.
There's something on the cemetery I've got.
Oh,
If you've
well
got
done.
anything on the church.
No.
The parish council may not want to do this, but it may when it realises the cost implications, because we've been talking about expenditure of 30,000.
Well, that's a wet thing, yeah.
So, there are these funds that do this sort of work. I mean, the countryside stewardship scheme, and I've got a chum in Beesmarsh, Charlie Reeves, who's a bit of an expert. And I think you've got to have more than 12 hectares to have an agricultural holding number and an SBI, a specific business index or something. And if you can get that, then you can apply to countryside stewardship. But I don't think the parish council is going to be in that position. Charlie thinks that either John Collingwood, who has the apple orchards next to Mary Mallet, or possibly Victor Mallet's got an agricultural holding number. I've asked him and he doesn't know. And but Charlie says it's possible when he's looking at it, we might be able to put in an application for things like all the fencing we need, all the hedging we need, the trees, the capping up, and possibly even the hard standing. And he's going to get back to me.
Maybe it isn't agricultural.
But it's rural.
It is rural, yeah.
There's another option. There's a thing called I think it's backed by the Rousing family, and it's based over at Plymouth, the Lund scheme.
Yes. Yes,
Lund.
I will.
and it's High Weald and London,
Mm.
and they do grants of up to £15,000, and they specifically mention cemeteries as one of the projects they'd like to deal with. Unfortunately, I was slow off the mark, and their closing date for applications was the 5th of October this year. And they said, if you send in your application, we'll reply to you within a fortnight. Well, I sent in an application immediately after the last Parish Council meeting, and they haven't got back to me yet. So I'm chasing that one up. But whether we will want to do the work within the next year or what, and you obviously can't do it retrospectively, but that's another source of funding. And I mean, right, £15,000, if we got it in and didn't spend it, would make a difference to the precept and so on. If you see what I mean.
It'd be very useful.
So anyway, with your permission, I'm continuing to pursue it.
Okay. Well, we're just about to put in the application.
Can you register a cemetery as an asset of community value? And the reason I ask that is...
That's what the Lund scheme sort of...
Well, because at the moment there's a government fund that's match funding for assets of community value purchase. Or expenditure.
It's sort of thing we should have thought of some time ago, but...
You're not able to sell a cemetery in the sense that, well, I mean, you could, but it's only able to be a cemetery once it's been consecrated. It's fixed forever.
But the Lund scheme is particularly targets
Better than the pub.
things like cemeteries and other agricultural and rural developments and things, and it gives quite generous grants towards it. And the cemetery would be a perfect one for their criteria, if we can wait until their next opening.
Something you might do, Yvonne, which has only just occurred to me, although it may not be one that they keep an eye on, is talk to ICCM, the trade association we belong to for cemeteries.
So I'm sure there's funds available there, but of course, we should have. I mean, I should have thought of it a long time ago, but didn't. There it is.
Well, the speed that we've operated, next October's deadline, next month, is well within our time frame of operating.
Which October?
Well, I was hoping 2024.
I think it opens in June and closes in October.
There you go. It could be right up our street.
I've done a long write-up of the whole position which Yvonne has got, and we're hoping that she can get an application in, even if they come.
This is application for change of use.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and then we'll be moving on to getting the work done.
Oh, absolutely. All we've got to do is get change of use.
If we can delay it a bit further till June, then we can go.
Assuming that they don't then fuss about wanting planning approval for this, that, or the other, which I don't see they should, but you never know. But change of use is the first key. Right. Next Parish Council meeting is 9th of January, after we've had our celebrations. Items for information, the climate change specific meeting of the 25th of November, which I attended, a lot of the discussion there was about lift sharing being led by the chap who wants to build a new house or bungalow at Oxnile Barn, whose name I've forgotten.
David Allen Butler.
That's the one, David Allen Butler. He led on that. He wants to set up a lift sharing scheme. I don't know that it's got all of the benefits that the one he used to know in Boston in Massachusetts had, but we'll see.
What happened to his application? Do you think it flat?
No. He'll have to appeal if he wants to.
It's refused.
It was refused. I just forgotten. Yeah.
Well, he may have appealed already, I just don't know. I do not know. Now, the other thing was we're finding, or trying to find, people with experience of things that are climate change friendly. So, solar, I'm one of them. Heat pumps, I just found by chance a lady down Rye Hill who's got a heat pump that's working very well and underfloor heating. And it was installed by a local installer. I've put in an application for a survey for a heat pump. We'll find out what comes from that. And then there's the ground source, their air source, and then there's the ground source man who's presently living in Stone and bought John Rivers' house and drilled the big wells, which, by the way, are 5 of them, 200 metres deep each. and he discovered water at 65 metres.
No oil.
No, but he is thinking that he may be able to go off grid for his water.
No sheep.
65 metres is below sea level.
Oh well.
Just saying, round on the marshes.
But I assume he knows exactly what came out. He said that hearing that at the top of the well, they could hear it flowing.
Oh, it was going.
Anyway, he has a heat pump company. I mean, they drill the holes for ground source for heat pumps, not for geotechnical, but just heat pumps. He's got a branch in Europe or two, and he's got the one here.
Interesting.
And he had a lot of equipment doing that work, and a crew of several, and he's living in Stone.
Well, you're going to pass his details on to us.
Indeed. Yeah, you've got the space. I did suggest to him, though, that I thought he'd only done it because, mostly they do commercial work, I thought they'd only done it because he owned the company. It would be very expensive, and he's, yeah, that's true. He could afford it. But yes, I've got his details if you want them.
Can you send it to me an email?
I will try to remember. Right, send ground source heat pump details to Right, okay, I'll try and remember that, or chase me. Right, the highway seminar report, Yvonne and I attended it, it was online. My main takeaway was that the new cabinet member was there, Neil Baker, who replaced the one who got into a bit of grief earlier in the year, telling all the parish councils that the highways weren't into having proper discussions or whatever on planning applications, which we did hear again, by the way, because apparently they can have costs awarded against them by the inspector if they lose. And he also didn't want anyone doing anything at JTBs, basically, the joint transportation boards in each district. Anyway, this new one seemed to be much better. He was younger, keen, stayed for the whole session, which was 3 hours, and took a part. So that was something. That doesn't mean to say they've got any money, of course. And Yvonne had some takeaways as well.
Yeah, so you all saw these slides, but the things, a couple of things that I thought were interesting. When I get all the reports, or the notices for road closures that come through, and they're often late. And I often complained about it, but it turns out that the utilities can close roads, and it's 2 hours after they've closed them that they tell KCC.
Yeah.
KCC then, and they put the utilities put the diversion in, KCC then have to go out and check the diversions. So that's why it comes out so late. That's why we didn't get told in advance. They have this Vision Zero where they're aiming to have 0 deaths. And, I can't remember the year, but they have weekly meetings with all these other police, fire, to see how they're going and what they can do. Obviously, the electric vehicle charging you saw.
That was frightening. The fact that where we live, High Weald, there weren't any, and it was like sort of this barren patch.
Yeah.
And given that,
you can go downhill, you just can't get back up again.
well, given that the car industry in this country is facing a challenge in that the government's bringing legislation that 20% of all sales have to be electric vehicles, and they're hoping that will bring the price down, because if they don't sell 20%, they can't sell the not. Well, I was rounded.
Yeah, rounded.
But I just wondered whether there were any takeaways about what the plans were for the High Weald electric vehicle charging desert.
Well, maybe there will be a charger put outside the hall here, but then on the other hand, they'd have to get some electricity to run it.
Yeah, I think it's the places.
You're looking for joined up government, this is the
Well, I just maybe combined with the defibrillator.
And the highway tree planting, I didn't think that would be very interesting, but I thought it was. They plant 850 a year, but they take out 800 that are diseased or dying. The contractors plant them, and they have a year's guarantee, and the contractors are the ones that go around watering as well, looking after them. He showed a photo, and in fact it's on one of the slides, a big oak tree, which is valued at £55,000.
They have a scheme for valuing these things.
Mhm.
The whole Kent County Council highways tree stock is worth about 30 or 40 billion in this sort of magic number thing.
And when developers have to remove one, and one gets removed that's on near the highway, they have to pay the council,
They find them.
for removing that tree, which I thought was,
Okay.
they're the things that I found.
Thank you.
It was long, but it was, and some of it was a bit hard to follow, to be honest.
Calc,
but
especially calc
Calc was
presentation
particularly
was.
tedious. But there were bits that were interesting. It was, and it was different.
Thank you.
As I said, the cabinet member was there for 3 hours, so was the head of highways, an Indian woman. Oh, well, I mean, as of originally Indian or similar. Obviously she's here now. She's in charge of the whole lot.
Recording's off, right?
And they were both there. Right, I think that is it, unless anyone else has got other things to raise.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Oh yes, there is. Yes, thank you, Yvonne. I'm just very briefly going to mention the Jeremiah Greenland Trust,
Oh yeah.
which has always been rather a minimalist charity in the village. It's called the Jeremiah Greenland Charity, and it makes a distribution sometimes effectively, and sometimes you miss the point, and but anyway, but it does its best. And we have a distribution committee every year. But this year we've rather raised our game a bit because we've had some really quite sizable donations into the trust. And for instance, we've been able to support a member of the village who's perhaps got learning challenges into having some equine therapy, which is quite expensive, and we've been able to considerably support other people in the village. I'm just bringing it to the attention because if we do get various sources of funding, Yvonne's Coffee Mornings, we have a regular donation from a member of the village once a month. We have a small amount of investment which produces some income for distribution. But if anybody thinks or has an idea about other sources of revenue for the Jeremiah Greenland Trust, I think we're probably in a position these days where we could distribute it quite effectively.
And I was just going to add to that over 11 months, we were able to give £100 from our coffee morning, which was
Much done.
Very much
Well done.
appreciated. But we did get one very big donation this year, by our standards, very big, which has been very, very useful for supporting all the school and other parties in the village.
Right, anything else from anybody?
No.
Otherwise I shall...
I came through today the Christmas household waste collection times, which of course, because you're Monday here, it becomes the Saturday before.
Yeah. And no waste for no garden waste for about a month.
That's right, yeah, like last year. That does remind me actually, I've just sent something out which we'll get to Yvonne if it hasn't already, through Calc. I've been talking to Ashford, just for your information, suggested they came to our meeting the Calc meeting in early January. They decided they wouldn't do that, but they're inviting all the parish council members to go to their briefing of ward councillors at the end of January. The new contract starts on Sunday the 24th of March, I think it's 24th. Before that, they've got to have a big communication programme, not least because quite a lot of people have their days changing. We may or may not have it change, we don't know yet. I've suggested that they provide material, which they've said they're very keen to do, to get into the parish magazines. So we're busy collecting at the minute. I've told them what ours are, the print deadlines, so that we can get material from Ashford to put into the parish magazines to give people another chance of knowing what's going on. I presume there'll be an Ashford for you, but then I dare say a lot of people would throw that in the bin without looking at it, just as they do Outlook. And as I say, instead of having our current situation where most of us get collected pretty early on a Monday morning, it's up for grabs. I have no idea when it will be. It will go to CETA, or the CETA part of Suez, which is the same as we had before Biffa. French. Okay, that's all right. Okay, thank you very much everybody. Do you have anything more to drink and eat?